Well, good evening. We would love to welcome you all to Something to Talk About, which is our Friday night activity in the park. We love having people out here in the park. There are 3 reasons why we do Something to Talk About. But before we do that, I'm just going to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting, the Kumameri people. Pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Anytime we gather together, we try to pay our respect to elders. And today I'm here with an amazing elder from our community, in George O'Brien, OAM, and it's going to be great. But the 3 reasons we do get together. The first is economic. We're hoping that as you come into the park tonight and enjoy some music and enjoy this interview, you will get a chance to drop into one of the pizza shops or the new Indian place, or make a reservation in a restaurant later on tonight. We hope there'll be an economic impact. The second reason we get together is we think there's a richness to our community that is driven by its cultural and historical background, and we think learning a bit about that is really important. So we're recording a series of 12 interviews, and those will capture some of that cultural and historical background of our local area, with some wonderful identities, including George here, who you'll hear from later. The third reason we get together is social. We think it's actually really awesome to just gather in the park and get together as a community, meet members of the community maybe you haven't met before, and we hope that you come together and maybe meet someone you don't know. There are 3 organisations that we just want to thank for being a part of tonight. Living Events is our stage managing and talent booking and recording, and they manage all of the stage stuff that goes on with our event, and without Lan and his team we couldn't get together, so massive thank you to Lan and his team. The Lions Club of Mudgeeraba are our hosting community organisation. They've been working in our community for many, many years now, and we are so appreciative of Michael and Sharon from the Lions, who have come down tonight to check things out. And if you want to get involved in community action or community volunteering, we think the Lions Club is a great group for you to join. So go and talk to Michael or Sharon. They're in their red shirts. Go and say good day to them, and I'm sure they'd love to chat with you about what it means to be a Lion. And the third group is Kirsty Abraham's trio, who are playing between 6 p.m. and 7:30 tonight. They are going to be awesome, and it's great having an emerging act from Gilston come down and play in Mudgeeraba, and we're just stoked that Kirsty can play with us tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. Finally, this beautiful big brown couch was donated for our use from Bookness Mudgeeraba, which is a little bookshop up in Mudgeeraba, and they said we could use it as long as we gave them a shout out. So there you go. Bookness will get that. But let's get on with the interview. Let's start with this amazing man. Now, George has been in our community for many, many years now, more than 40. And we are so proud to know him. He's involved in quite a lot of community groups, but what he's probably best known for professionally is being principal of the Mudgeeraba State School. Can you tell us how that came about, George?
Yes, well, principal of Mudgeeraba State School. Interesting you'd say that, because that finally led me to come to Mudgeeraba. I started in the early 1960s, and they sent me 100 miles west of Blackall to my first one-teacher school, a place called Yarraka. 100 miles west of Blackall, 38 children, 8 different grades. So busy during the day, and when the kids went home at night, I was so lonely. Yeah. In those days, the government owned their teachers, and I had to do what they said. So after Mudgeeraba, after Yarraka, I asked for permission to get married, and the government gave me permission to get married.
That was nice of them, George.
They shifted me, and they gave me a schoolhouse to live in a little school near Gympie, a place called Lagoon Pocket. I was there for a little while, and I got a promotion to a little school over here near Boona, Templin near Boona, a one-teacher school there. Of course, in those days, the school inspector used to come around, and he used to check to see what you were doing. You had to be pretty good at your work, and you had to be part of the community. You had to show how you were fitting into the community. If you did all those things well, you got a promotion. So after Templin, Boona, they sent me to a 2-teacher school, a place called Galugaba.
Galugaba?
Yeah, way out near Miles, Wandoan. And from Galugaba, I must have given the inspector a bit of a treat, because he sent me to Pittsworth.
Right.
And Pittsworth, I was there 3 years, and they sent me to St George. all over the place.
Goodness gracious.
St George, and I must have impressed them so well at St George that they said I could go to the Gold Coast. And I went to a beautiful school called Labrador.
Ah.
Now, unfortunately, I was at a stage where I had to have at least 850 children in the school, otherwise I'd have to move on. So I had over 1,000, and that was really good. And then they built Helensvale. I was getting a couple of hundred from Helensvale. They built Helensvale, they built Coomera, and George had to move on.
Right.
Now, I didn't want to leave Labrador. They said, you're going to Mudgeeraba.
Uh-oh.
I tell you, it's the best thing in the world. I didn't want to come here, but I love it so much. I've been in Mudgeeraba since the end of 1985. So that's about 38 years or so. I'm not a local.
No, you're not allowed to be a local.
I'm not a local. You've got to be a local.
I don't know what the years are, but we haven't reached it yet.
Yeah. So Mudgeeraba, and I retired from the school in 1996 as principal, but kept teaching till 2008. And I'm so glad that I came to Mudgeeraba. I just love the place. Thank you for having me.
Oh, that's lovely, George. What inspired you to become a teacher, though? What was it about that made sense to you?
Well, in the early days, in the early 60s, you mightn't believe this, but they were running short of teachers.
Right.
Have you ever heard that over the news in these last few days? They were running short of teachers. And the government sent out to our high schools some government people to interview us, and they picked out who they thought would be very good teachers. And they gave us scholarships. So they paid me to go to grade 9, to grade 11. They paid me £2 a week.
£2?
£2, that's $4.
$4 a week, wow.
And then when I went to grade 11, they gave me £2 10 shillings.
Well, that's good.
A week.
$4.50.
And then when I went to college, they picked 1,200 of us to go to college at the teachers' college. That's all it did. They taught teachers how to be teachers.
Right.
And we were there. I was there 12 months. They paid me £4 a week.
Gosh.
But because I lived away from home, I got £6 a week.
Goodness gracious. I hope you didn't spend it all at once, George.
But you know, because they paid me for those 3 years, they owned me for 3 years. I had to move on then. So anyway, I wanted to be a soldier, but I became a teacher, and I'm so glad I did.
Oh, that's good. What did you enjoy most about your day-to-day work when you were a teacher?
Well, I just loved being around the children. These days you're not allowed to do this, but I used to put my arms around the children, and I've got to say to you, when they were naughty, I smacked a bottom or two.
Yes.
But you're not allowed to do that anymore. I've got to say, though, I love the kids, and that was the biggest thing in the day, to see the children, talk to them, learn their names, find out what their mum and dad did. Lovely.
Oh, that's so good. And when you came to Mudgeeraba in 1985 or thereabouts, it had just gone through a bit of a transformation. It was a relatively new school, I think, because they'd moved from an old location. Can you tell us a bit about like the time in Mudgeeraba up to the time you came here and what it was like when you got here?
Righto. Well, Mudgeeraba has got really good history. It's a lovely historical place, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you go out here on Springbrook Road, there's a little church out there.
Yes.
It's a Uniting Church now, but I think it was a Presbyterian church in those days. It was built in 1891.
1891?
1891. In 1892, that became the school as well.
Right.
That was the school. So it would be called Mudgeeraba Provisional, provisional meaning the people provided the building.
Yes.
Mudgeeraba Lower Provisional School. And 1892 we were there, and the school stayed there till 1914.
Wow.
So they had the church and the school all together, 1914. Then on the hill over here, they built the new school, which is now Mudgeeraba
Special
School. And that was there 1914 to 1980.
Yes.
1981, over in Old Coach Road, the new school. And I came out in 1985 to that school.
So during your time at Mudgeeraba State School, there was a few big events that happened. What were some of the things you're most proud of during your tenure at Mudgeeraba State School?
Well, I've got to say to you, you just remember I said to you our school started in 1892.
1892.
Well, 1992 was the centenary of our school.
100-year-old.
100 years old, 1992. So we had to do some special events for 1992. So what did I do? I made up my mind that I'd grow some whiskers.
You grow a moustache, right?
and a big moustache. And I picked 25 children, and we all went back to...
And they all grew moustaches as well?
We all went back to the little church and formed a one-teacher school back at the church.
Wow.
In order to be picked to be in that one-teacher school for the centenary, the children had to promise me that they would wear some old clothes, old-type clothes. They would come to school, either walk a long distance, like the little kids did in those days, or they could come on a horse, or they could come on a sulky.
Yes.
But they had to be old time.
Yeah.
So for 1 week up there at the little church, we had a one-teacher school, and it was really good. And all the district came to see us, and all the kids from the school came up to see us. And it was such a lovely thing. As a result of the centenary as well, of course, we had to do some other things.
Yes.
So for the school itself, to commemorate 100 years, we built the swimming pool.
The swimming pool that's at the Mudgeeraba State School now?
At school, yes. And I've got to say to you, we had raised enough money by that stage to pay cash.
Wow.
For the swimming pool.
So that was fundraised by the community?
Yes, yes. So we had some really good fundraising events. And then as our gift to the town, the state school for its centenary built the Labrador Memorial. No, Labrador, the Mudgeeraba. The Mudgeeraba Memorial. And that is in Elsie Labour Park.
Right.
And it's a lovely thing because on the one side of it's got the soldiers' names.
Yes.
And on the other side it's got all the names of our settlers.
Yeah.
So if you've got nothing to do at some time or other, go up and have a look at Mudgeeraba Memorial and see the soldiers who served from this district and see our pioneers' names.
There's something beautiful about it, that park, because it has that mix of not just veterans and servicemen, but members of the community.
That's right, and that was the start of our Anzac Day as well. So from 1992 onwards, we celebrated Mudgeeraba Anzac Day sunset ceremony.
Wow! And do you remember why it was known as Elsie Labour Park? Did you ever know Elsie Labour?
Well, Elsie Labour was just a very prominent citizen. The Labours were early citizens in the place, and as a tribute to her, they named the park.
There you go.
I had to go and see Bill Laver, who was the chairman of the Shire Council at the time, to get permission to build in Elsie Labour Park.
Yeah.
And he was so proud about the fact that Elsie Labour would have something to do with that.
That's lovely, that's lovely. So this is a big year for Mudgeeraba State School. You know, you've got 100 years, you've had this week of teaching of 25 student class over at the old school, you've built the new swimming pool at Mudgeeraba State School, you've gone into the community at Elsie Labour Park and built a memorial. Wow, I mean that's a big week of work for you.
Yes.
You did not do it yourself.
Well, it didn't happen all in 1 week. It happened during our centenary year.
Centenary year.
Yeah.
Okay, top stuff. And that must have been a really good year. Well, I mean, school isn't always good. Can you remember a year or a time that was a really difficult time or a hard time?
Look, I've got to say that schools have their problems every now and again, but I've got to say that Mudgeeraba School is a great school. It's had great staff and had very good principals over the years, and I've got to say I can't think of a time when there was something really bad happened up there.
That's good to know. That's good to know. Awesome. What do you think about education these days compared to what it was like in your days? Tell me a bit about that. Tell us a little about your thoughts on that.
Yes, I do worry a bit about education these days, and the fact that as I see it, I might be wrong, as I see it, there's not as much discipline as there was in my day. I used to tell the kids at school, discipline is a wonderful thing. To march down the road with 500 other blokes, all putting their left foot down at the same time, that's discipline,
yes.
And it feels so good. And now, of course, I guess in my day I was a grumpy old fella, and I expected the children to do exactly as I wanted them to do, and to behave themselves and to do their best all the time. Everybody who did their best, I praised them. Didn't matter if their best wasn't as good as somebody else's. If they did their best, I was happy. And I guess these days, with telephones that people keep looking at, and all sorts of computers and that sort of thing that take your attention away, even watches these days, when people look at their watches, it makes it very difficult to get some messages through, because people are not listening to you.
Yeah, it's hard.
And when I walked into a classroom, I expected everybody to put their eyes on me and listen.
Wow. Okay. It's good. It's good. I mean, you're working with kids, and you actually gave me some news the other day. Something happened in your own family. There's a new addition to your own family. What's happened this week? Or this
About 8 weeks ago, I became for the first time a great-granddad.
Wow. Wow. Great-granddad. Oh, goodness gracious.
Little Phoebe is doing very well.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that, George. I'm sure you and Denise will make great grandparents. Excellent great-grandparents. Yeah. So what do you think, some of the people who might be watching this video or listening today, they might want to be teachers. They might be aspiring to be teachers. What sort of advice, as someone who's taught for so long, would you give to an aspiring teacher?
If you want to become a teacher, I suggest to you, as I have suggested to all new teachers every time I saw them, whenever they came into my charge, if you're a new teacher or if you're an old teacher, you must look good in front of the kids. You must look as if you are in charge.
Yes.
So always dress nicely, always have good habits about you, speak well, and make sure that the children understand that you'll only take the best.
There you go, that's good. Good advice. So beyond the classroom, George, what sort of personal passions or interests have fueled your journey?
Well, I was a teacher. I used to have my own class until I moved out of those one teacher schools and two teacher schools. Finally, I came to the stage where I didn't have a class. All the teachers have the classes, and the deputy principals, and up here at Mudgeeraba I had 3 deputy principals, so I found it very difficult to have a class of my own. So I used to move into the classes on a regular basis and take over, and I'm sure I was a bit of a nuisance. But nevertheless, I did want to talk to the children, and I did want to tell them how good literature was and how good poetry was, and just how good their bookwork should be.
Yeah.
And then I'd move on to another class and do the same.
Right. Well, I mean, you haven't just been a teacher and teaching teachers either, but you've been involved in the Lions Club, and you've been involved in the RSL, and obviously involved in the Anzac Day. You've been involved in community activities that have grown our village. What would you say makes our community so rich? Like, why is it that community participation is so important to you?
Well, a community is as good as it is when they all stick together. And Mudgeeraba has got wonderful spirit, and how much could you be better than to have everybody pulling together and making a good job of things?
Good. Now, you'll remember a situation a little while back where the government, not my level of government, but another level of government, put a sign up on the M1 and they spelt it incorrectly. That was a big deal at the time, but you've got a rhyme for us so we can spell Mudgeeraba correctly. How does it go?
They did. They spelt Mudgeeraba incorrectly, didn't they? Well, at the Lions Club, we know how to spell Mudgeeraba, so I'm going to teach all of those people out there how to spell Mudgeeraba. Are you ready?
Yep.
Righto. Well, say after me this. M-U-D-G-E-E-R.
M-U-D-G-E-E-R.
Oh, no, look, I want you to shout this. Come on now, you ready? M-U-D-G-E-E-R. M-U-D-G-E-E-R. Now, when we've said that, we all together say A-B-A, Mudgeeraba.
All right.
So we say M-U-D-G-E-E-R, M-U-D-G-E-E-R, A-B-A, Mudgeeraba. Are you ready?
All right, let's do it.
I want you to shout at the top of your voice. M-U-D-G-E-E-R.
M-U-D-G-E-E-R, A-B-A, Mudgeeraba. That's good, that's good. And I'm sure every young person who's trying to spell Mudgeeraba is now very grateful that they have something, and I'm sure there's some young parents here who would be very happy that their kids are going to be shouting that to them as they go to bed tonight. Something you love, and I know that you love this because I've heard you do it before, but poetry is important to you. You know, art and music are great, but poetry is something that's quite precious to you. Do you have a poem you could share with us to finish our interview today?
A poem, righto. People out there, do you know what a swagman is? In my day, lots of people used to go along the road. They didn't have a home to live in. They went down the road looking for a job, and they had everything over their back. They had their blanket and they had their shoes and everything in there. That was called their swag. C.J. Dennis, great poet, wrote a poem called The Swagman. The Swagman by C.J. Dennis. Oh, he was old and he was spare. His bushy whiskers and his hair were all fussed up and very grey. He said he'd come a long, long way and had a long, long way to go. Each boot was broken at the toe and he'd a swag upon his back. His billy can, as black, was just a thing for making tea at picnics, so it seemed to me. 'Twas hard to earn a bite of bread, he told me. Then he shook his head, and all the little corks that hung around his hat brim danced and swung and bobbed about his face. And when I laughed, he made them dance again. He said they were for keeping flies, the pesky varmints, from his eyes. He called me Codger. Now you see the best days of your life, said he, but days will come to bend your back, and when they come, keep off the track. Keep off, young Codger, if you can. He seemed a funny sort of man. He told me that he wanted work, but jobs were scarce this side of Burke, and he supposed he'd have to go another 50 miles or so. Nigh all my life the track I've walked, he said. I liked the way he talked. Oh, the places he had seen, I don't know where he had not been. On every road, in every town, all through the country, up and down. Young Codger, shun the track, he said, and put his hand upon my head. I noticed then that his old eyes were very blue and very wise. I sometimes think when I'm a man, I'll get a good black billy can and hang some corks around my hat and lead a jolly life like that.
So good. Wow. George, you're a delight to talk to, and I feel like we could have talked for another half an hour. It's wonderful to have you with us today. I want to acknowledge George today because George has a special acknowledgement that we're going to give you. He has been a lion for 25 years, lion of Mudgeeraba for 25 years.
46.
Well, 46 years, but the Lions Club have told me that...
Yeah.
They've told you that you've been 25 years as a lion at Mudgeeraba, maybe? Maybe you're a lion elsewhere?
Yeah, lions, yeah.
Lions everywhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, they wrote you a letter called the Chevron Award. And the Chevron Award is aptly named after the chevron symbol in reference to a badge or an insignia indicating rank or length of service. Your commitment to service as a member of your association is both honourable and commendable, as you've touched the lives of so many people. From the smallest project to the largest undertaking, your many years of service have made an incredible difference in our community. Lions Club of International have recognised you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
What a pleasure to have you here today.
I regret that these days I'm unable to walk properly and unable to do all the things I could do, but I do trust that you believe that I have made a fairly reasonable contribution. Thank you very much.
I think that might be the understatement of the night, mate, but you're a good man. We've got a little gift for you, and can I get a big round of applause for George O'Brien?
Thank you.